Hi everyone, my name is AJ from 8 Ounce, and today we're actually going to be doing a product review of the Fellow Shimmy. This product is new to Fellow, and we're actually planning to receive it around October of this year, 2021. And we wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown of the product itself if you haven't seen any videos already. And then I will be talking about a few different topics that people will talk about specifically with sifting out coffee fines and some of the pros and or cons that people have found with it. And without further ado, let's begin. And now here we have the Fellow Shimmy coffee sieve. In typical Fellow fashion, shake it till you make it. Great little addition there. And from the back, it points out the easy cleaning components, the fine etched filter, which they have marked at 200 microns. And on the back, they have all of the different parts that make up the coffee sieve. And we will go over that right now. So let's get started. And as we alluded to earlier, it has a little bit of that shaker vibe. So then whenever you put in your total amount of coffee in the top, up to 80 grams of coffee, and then you collapse the top, you're gonna shake it for about 30 seconds. What this does is it allows any particles or coffee grounds that are smaller than 200 microns, which is roughly like 0.2 millimeters, I think, or something. I'm not great with that. It will then allow those finer bits of coffee to collect in the bottom. So then after you're done shaking, so let's say after you're done shaking for 30 seconds, that's nice as well that a lot of people haven't pointed out is that it actually, the lid and the base stays on very well. So you don't feel like you have to hold all the pieces in place to be able to actually shake and break apart all of your fines from your main body of your coffee. And then once you're done shaking and ready to brew, the spout then can put out the larger bits while containing the fines in the bottom. Pretty much 4 simple parts. You have your lid, you have a base, and then your 200 micron filter with the body. Super simple, super sleek, and I do love that touch of the gray on the body. It definitely fits well, and I feel like when it sits beside an Atmos or something else, it feels like it fits with the rest of the Fellow lineup. And now let's talk about some of the topics that people have with sifting out fines within your coffee brew bed, and some of the positives or negatives. Firstly, let's define what fines migration is. I've talked about it in previous videos, like our Gabby video, which you can find right up here. Thanks, Morgan.
You're welcome.
Fines migration is basically where you can see it in everyday life. If you buy a bag of tortilla chips, when you open up the bag, where are the finer and smaller pieces going to be? In the bottom of the bag. Fines migration will be the exact same thing in your coffee brew bed. While you brew your coffee, your larger pieces of coffee will naturally be at the top of your brew bed, and the smallest fines will actually find a way down to the bottom. Now, using any sort of coffee sifter or anything else, like this one or the Groove, will basically help take out those smallest particles. So when you do that, you do take out a little bit of weight out of your coffee bed. When I was testing this out on my Fellow Ode, it's roughly around 1.6 grams of fines below 200 micron for every 20 grams, which is 8% of your total body, which sounds like a lot, but when you're brewing 20 grams of coffee, that's a difference of 320 grams of water for a 16 ratio, comparatively to 294. It's a difference of 25 grams when you use the coffee sieve, comparatively to not. So it doesn't actually affect your end result as much, but really helps clarify and almost make some of the notes that some of the coffee roasters may put on the bag. It actually, for me, in my own personal experience, I found it easier to be able to find and discover those notes for myself. And now for point number 2, which I lightly touched on in the previous point, it helps bring a little bit more clarity and almost makes the tasting notes a little bit more separate from each other, so then it's easier to distinguish. Now, why would you use this? Potentially for coffees like a washed Ethiopian or something that has a lot more fines or can clog a little bit easier, like if you have a classic pleated wave. If you take out these fines, it will actually allow you to brew a quicker time. Now, when you have this, then to help offset that quicker time, it'll actually allow you to grind finer for the whole body of your brew. When you do this, then you can help extract even more sweetness and even more clarity out of it comparatively to if you're grinding a bit coarser and not taking any fines out. And now that brings us to point number 3. I've been seeing a lot of people mention about different coffee sifters and how when you take some of the fines out, it results in a lower extraction and also lower TDS comparatively to not sifting. Well, that sort of makes sense. If you keep the same ratio and you brew with the same amount of water, but you have less coffee inside your brew bed, it's obviously going to have a lower TDS, or your extraction will be less because fines are easier to extract than the larger pieces of coffee. That's a natural given. If you're using this to be able to help offset that lower TDS and lower extraction, the goal is to adjust your ratio according to your final weight. So for example, when I was brewing, I originally put in 20 grams of coffee in here, but after shaking, it took out 1.6 grams of fines, which means I have 18.4 grams left of coffee that I'm using out of this top portion. So now when you discover your final weight after sifting, then build your ratio off of that. So then you aren't adding in more water than is necessary. And the second thing that you can do is grind a little bit finer, just because now that you've removed those fines and your brew time is going to be quicker, now to help offset that change in brew time, you can actually grind a little bit finer, which will naturally lead to a higher extraction rate and TDS if you brew with the same technique and pours. So it doesn't necessarily have to change the end of your cup. Just like how with brewing any sort of coffee, when you change a variable, it will change the flavor. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel as we are releasing videos weekly. If you have any questions about the coffee sieve or any questions in general, drop a comment below or send us an email, which will be in the description as well. And until next time, happy brewing.